I'm going to preface my little rant with a description of what I'm talking about so that everybody, including those who aren't particularly well versed in the nuances of video games, can understand. In fact, I might barely talk about Victoria 3 at all in this video, so please be prepared. I don't think it matters what kind of game you've been playing. Tier lists are inevitable. Humans have an intrinsic need to compartmentalize the importance of things, and tier lists scratch that itch quite well, which is why they will always be popular amongst the general public. The reasoning is quite simple. A plethora of choices can lead to analysis paralysis, a well-known glitch in the human psyche that prevents us from being able to make a choice when we are given far too many options and far too much information all at once. The tier list immediately takes that bevy of options and, like the sword that cut the Gordian's knot, tier lists will cut through the chaff at the bottom, giving people far less choices to pick from at the top tiers, because the ones at the bottom tiers are often seen, usually through a great deal of metrics and heuristics, as weaker in a complicated paradox game. Were this a fighting game, the tier list is even easier to understand because of matchups. S tiers will often have some of the best matchups in the game, making them far more likely to win than an F tier who happens to have some of the worst matchups in the game. Describing matchups is the same as describing sports odds. By picking the F tier, you're betting on what is seen as the worse odds. By picking the S tier, you're betting on what is seen as the better odds. There is just one problem when talking about tier lists. People take them as gospel, and they use it as an excuse to stop thinking for themselves, when they should recognize that tier lists change daily in hyper-competitive games. There should not be an end-all, be-all tier list. No one person, or even group, knows every aspect or every little nuance of a game, and they will never be able to recite indisputably who or what is the best. Even in fighting game communities where they delve deep into the metrics of their matchups to the point where they have it down to a literal science, tier lists are constantly being updated and changed regularly. If you're looking for an example of this, think back to the placement of Jigglypuff on the earliest tier list from Smash Bros. Melee. There was even an April Fool's joke where they put Jigglypuff in the number 2 spot on the tier list, stating ironically that its aerial speed and Wall of Pain skill set helped it rule the air to the point of domination. They actually thought this was a joke back then. That would be about the time when Hungrybox showed up. Then, by the 10th release of the all-important tier list, Jigglypuff actually did move up to the top tier without being considered the butt of an April Fool's joke in the process, spurred on by the fact that its floatiness, aerial speed, and skill set made it a force to be reckoned with in the right person's hands. Did Jigglypuff change? Well, no. So why did the meta change? It's because tier lists are bullshit. They've always been bullshit. There is no exact science despite what people want to tell you. Yes, tier lists are the result of endless amounts of research, and some are even quantifiable through numerical values that could be considered indisputable. Yet, the inputs those values are placed in are inherently opinion-based to the point where every tier list should be seen as opinion and not fact. That was quite the long descriptor now, wasn't it? Finally, after all this time, we get to talk about Victoria 3. Tier lists in Victoria 3 aren't based on anything but conjecture and opinion. I could talk to you all day about the merits of the birth rate bonus from the Basic Food Company, but already I can see people failing to take into account the fact that its value is tied to how well it synergizes with other birth rate bonuses and, perhaps most importantly, migration. Conversely, people are neglecting the opportunity cost that you're paying by taking the Basic Food Company as your first company every single game. You're giving up early game accessibility to basic metal mining, which is a company that can skyrocket your GDP and construction. Either that, or you forego one of the myriad of flavored companies that can do the same, except even better for the sake of population growth. At the same time, the actual value of birth rate is based on opinion. At this point, it's based off of my opinion. I value population as the most important metric when determining the GDP of a country. We, as a player base, seem to determine that GDP is one of the most important meter sticks when measuring the success or failure of a country. So while my opinion does happen to have a lot of research behind it, at the end of the day, its entire worth is propped up by two opinions that just so happen to intersect. Not only should you disagree with my presuppositions, you should be able to justify it with your own information, your own conjecture, your own research, and your own ideas. Everybody's tier list should have some similarities, but they should never be identical to each other. They should never serve as overlays for each other. If somebody tries to argue from the standpoint of consensus, you should just remind them that consensus changes like the wind. If empiricism was the only possible epistemological method, then this would stand up to scrutiny. But again, to borrow from the historied Super Smash Bros. Melee tier list, Sheik was by consensus considered the best character in the game for 3 years. Now, in the modern era, Sheik doesn't even rate in the top tier. In regards to Victoria 3, people considered the Basic Food Company to be garbage tier for the longest time, and yet persistent glazing from a comparatively stupid single YouTuber suddenly propelled it into the top tier. Does this mean Basic Food should be guaranteed the first pick in every single game? Well, it better not be. I don't think anybody should ever agree on tier lists. I want people to look at my tier list and to think, this guy is stupid, I can do it better. I want them to listen to my reasoning and then argue with it. I want you to hear me when I boast, I told you so, and then state, sure, fine, but my idea is actually better in this situation. Never should a tier list be anything more than a guideline, and never should anybody ever use my tier list in an argument from authority. I am not an expert. I am barely considered a professional, and of my YouTube peers, I am the F tier. So please, do not use my tier list as a way to shut down discussion. That is not what they're there for. If I happen to catch you out in the wild using my tier list in this way, I might mock you. Good luck arguing from authority when the so-called authority you're citing is actively teasing you. Once more, I'm going to end my little rant with another quote from a song. This time, it'll be from a song called The Answer by Bad Religion. It goes as such. Don't tell me about the answer, cause then another one will come along soon. I don't believe you have the answer. I've got ideas too. Simply put, everybody has ideas. Everybody has the capacity to think for themselves. Do not give up your ability to think for yourself, to reason for yourself, or to determine for yourself based on what an expert tells you. Tier lists are no different. My ideas are no better than yours, and no amount of research can change that. Anyhow, thank you for listening to my little TED Talk. I do hope you still enjoy playing Victoria 3 in spite of it. Just make sure to give your loved ones an extra hug today if you can, because life can come at you fast and they might not be there tomorrow. Other than that, thank you for watching, and hail Hydra Cat.